Call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Rankin,
Here.
Vice Mayor Smith,
Here.
Councilmember Celaya,
Here.
Councilmember Hawkins,
Here.
Councilmember Montano,
Here.
Councilmember Walter. Here. Councilmember Woolridge.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you.
Our first item tonight is a work session with the Industrial Development Authority. As council remember, the last time we were here, we did not pass a bond for the IDA. That has a direct impact on our community. Can't hear me? That has a direct impact on our community, and we want to make sure that we bring the IDA back, plus Mr. Wilder and Mr. Fries, and we get back on track with funding through IDA bonds. And so tonight we're privileged to be in a work session with the members of the IDA with Mr. Wilder and Mr. Fries. Jennifer Evans has prepared a little background from the IDA, and she's going to go ahead and present that to you now.
Mayor Rankin, members of the council, the purpose of this work session with the Florence IDA is to discuss the powers of the IDA as well as the role of the authority's governing body, and that would be the town council. The Florence IDA is empowered by state statute to issue bonds and loan the proceeds from the sale of bonds to finance community and economic development projects. The Florence Town Council is the governing body of the IDA and elects directors to the IDA as well as approves the proceedings of the IDA for the issuance of bonds. Since 2007, the Florence IDA has issued 10 bonds, the first of which was for Goodwill Industries that wanted to acquire property, renovate a building, and expand one of their stores. The other 9 bonds that have been issued since that time were for charter schools, a variety of charter schools throughout Arizona, and those funds were used to acquire and renovate and equip those schools. So the Florence IDA does have a track record of successfully issuing 10 bonds on behalf of these entities. And for each bond, the IDA generates revenue off of fees associated with those bonds. And over the past 2 years, since the mid part of 2013 and into this year, the Florence IDA has reinvested those funds into our community in a variety of projects. The IDA has provided funding to the Chamber of Commerce for its website, to the Florence Main Street program when it held its Smithsonian exhibition late last year. The IDA also invested in the annual home tour, as well as Future Forward Foundation for some of their projects. 2 of the larger projects the IDA has been involved with in the downtown area is assisting the owners of the Pinal Food Market, and they've also recently produced a tourism marketing brochure that they're currently distributing throughout the state. So that's just an example of more recent projects the IDA has been involved with and how they've reinvested in our community. So with the sale of these bonds, if they're able to continue to provide the service, they can also continue to invest in our community. And there may be opportunities in the future for the town to work with the IDA, but to do that, you know, the IDA would have to have town council approval to issue bonds. So we'd like to have a discussion and answer any questions, either from staff, the IDA itself, or Mr. Wilder and his partner. If there's any questions the council may have regarding bonding and the roles and responsibilities of each entity. So, thank you.
Mayor and members of council, do you have any questions for the IDA at this time or their attorneys, Mr. Wilder, Mr. Fries?
I do.
I got some. I'd like to know, and I think the last time when we turned down that bond, I think it was due to the fact that we don't know what the IDA is doing with their money. I talked to Mr. Cox quite a few times here recently, and he said I can come to the meetings and they put out a financial report. I think that's one of the biggest concerns that the council had is where's the money going? I know before when I asked, I was told that they didn't have to tell us where it was going. But if we're going to be working together on projects, the communication has to be both ways. And I don't know if any of the rest of the council has any thoughts or ideas on on this funding portion of it, or having accountability of the money.
I do, and also I noticed on the website linked, the meeting minutes, they're not posted. The information detailing everything is not posted. It's just a brief overview. And that evening, there really was no presentation that was made.
Excuse me, if I may just first answer the question, the first question from the Mayor. Mayor and Council, I want to thank you for inviting us to be here to talk over exactly who we are and what we do. The IDA is the first IDA formed in the state of Arizona by state statutes. We are a political subdivision of the state of Arizona, which is correct. We are probably the most active rural community IDA in the state of Arizona. Having said that, about information, lack of information getting back to members of council, you have two liaisons from council who attend our meetings, who receive everything that we as board members receive, whether it be our balance sheets, our involvement is our minutes, and as well as you have a representative from staff. So you have three, almost equivalent to the members, half of the membership on the board. Unfortunately, it seems as that might not be getting back to you. I will send a memo to our Secretary Treasurer that council members themselves will receive our minutes as well as our monthly financial statements, or when financial statements are provided. We never hide anything. I don't know of anyone who can say that we said that we don't have to be answer those questions. We are a public entity. And if I am the president, and if you would have come to me, I would have answered those. I had those for you.
Is there a way that you can post them online? As you mentioned, you're a public entity, so this way the residents...
Well, actually, we're a public-private quasi-entity, but there's no issue with that. In fact, we're working on a website to be in with Chamber Nation as we provide the funding for that to be. We'll not only have that information, but the process for securing bonding. I think the important thing here is to have our attorneys more specifically give to you what are the state statute states as far as what we do as a political subdivision of the state of Arizona, and our responsibilities and our due diligence as to what is provided by state statute, and what your responsibility as council members are, and working in on projects or getting information from us. So I would like to have any of those technical or that be presented to you before we get into the other personal or the other stuff you may have. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Weidler, and with him is Mr.
Peter, wait a minute, before you go on with that. Let's talk about some other issues, and maybe the attorneys can address that, but I still have another question. The town council accepted or allowed the IDA to accept the Kuhn building. It was brought in, it was from U.S. West. U.S. West wanted to be able to have the opportunity to go up on the second story of the switch station right behind the Kuhn building. At that time, the IDA had told us that they were going to go ahead, that they had the funding, they had the ability to restore that building. And now I guess because of the condition it is in, that the town has taken it back over, is that correct?
Mayor, I'd like to point out a couple of issues regarding the Kuhn building. When the town of Florence deeded it over to the IDA, we deeded it without deed restrictions. So the IDA was free to do what they would want to do with that building. The town is currently auctioning the IDA. There is an advertisement out, and we will be auctioning that building soon.
I know it wasn't in writing, but the IDA said they could do it, and that's the reason the town council at that time allowed the IDA to have it, because we didn't have the money or the expertise to do it. And that was, and Peter, I think you remember that.
I can remember this. I can remember that Jordan Rose came to us, and she represented Quest And at the time, we're going through a transition, changing over our articles of incorporation. And so we could not accept it at that time. So it was given to the council to revert back to us once we got our paperwork done. That's the issue there. We did plan to do something with the building. It was to be our own office. At the time, Delbert Lewis, Jack Linden actually said that he would give $500,000 for the restoration of that. And then Delbert and his wife came down and they said, well, we'll match that another $500,000. Whatever happened there, I know Mrs. Lewis passed away, and we didn't have the money to do it at that time. However, we had hired an architect, Dave Wilson, and he did the drawings for us at a cost and so forth. In fact, those have been submitted to the town. But at the time, we simply did not have the money.
And, okay, I may have some more questions on that in a minute. Does anybody else have any questions on the IDA?
I'd like to just say one more thing about the town's involvement with the IDA. The IDA is unlike anything else that the town does. The town council merely appoints the members of the IDA. All other boards and commissions are basically bound to the town council, and they're required to bring their minutes to the town council, and we have so long to post on the website underneath the Arizona Open Meeting Law. The IDA is independent from the town of Florence, and council has appointing authority only to the IDA.
Well, not only the appointing authority, we have the authority to let the bonds go or not.
That is correct, sir. I just meant about the treasurer's report and the minutes and being posted on the town's website.
Well, my understanding was several years back, we requested an audit of the IDA, of their finances, and that we were refused that. Now, I was verbally told that by staff. So, you know, if it's not true, then somebody misled me, but I definitely think that we should. Well, I think we need transparency. I think we need to see the books anytime we want.
Let me go back. Lisa started on this, but what I have before me is Leila Austin at one time when she was senator asked the Attorney General, Bob Corbin, to give a clarification, some points that she had. And this is an opinion from the Attorney General's office. I won't read it all, but I just read section 5 of it. And it says, one of the questions Leila Austin had, Senator Austin had, was, is there a principal-agent relationship between the governing body and its IDA? And it says here, we conclude there is no agency relationship between the governing body and the IDA. An essential element of the agency relationship is the principal's right to control a transaction. And it goes on, gives some listing of ARSs. Express to give governing body sole authority in relation to the formation of an IDA and to veto power over the issuance of IDA bonds. That is the right, or what's set by statute for the council. But it says, but the right to control the everyday operation and funds of the IDA is given to the board of directors. Therefore, we conclude that, and it gives the statutes, do not establish an agency relationship between a governing body and the IDA. And there, it says the same once again in its summary. In summary, we conclude the IDAs are political subdivisions of the state of Arizona, which are not given absolute quality. Well, that's for immunity, but it says, well, it just reiterates the fact that IDAs, is what I said in section 5.
So what are you saying, that we don't have the right to see the books? Is that what you're
No,
telling
I was
me? By state statute?
answering the question that was said before you. I hadn't got to that yet. Lisa made a statement as to what the state provides is what a council can do, and I thought that I would iterate some more into that. We have always never, always had our books. I don't know where you got that from. As a matter of fact, when that was brought to attention, who did we hire at the time from Casa Grande? Henry and Horn to come do our books, in which they did.
Bill,
At that point in time, you speak of.
you're correct. We were told that. And
Well,
we
it was
couldn't.
not true. I mean, it wasn't correct.
Well, they were also pointing out those state statutes that said that we're limited on, we're not trying to control. We just want to know what's going on. But they said under the statutes that we don't have the right to ask you for
Well,
that stuff or whatever, so.
whoever asked of that was incorrect. It wasn't me, nor was it a member of the board.
Tara?
I do. Also, in looking at the IDA, you know, the industrial developments, I look around at other towns and other cities, and they're developing within their cities. Why are we not moving in that direction? For example, you know, on the Queen Creek website, they talk about possibilities, vision, opportunities. They list out all of the different industrial developments, places to come and do business. We have areas out here, so why are we not going in that direction, partnering up?
I believe there are items coming up that would probably happen in. And I think at the present time, I mean, there have been things that I've disagreed with Peter, he knows that, we've talked about it, and others that I've agreed with him. But at this present time, I think we know how we stand with the IDA, we know how they're supposed to talk to us, we're supposed to talk to them, and so on, whose authority's got what. But there is something coming up that we will be talking to the IDA on a bond, and I think we need to work together to get this done right.
Tom, you're right. I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. The thing, members of the IDA, and I'll address all of you, is that I can understand an IDA up in Phoenix not having communication with their council on a daily basis. Most of us see one another on a daily basis, weekly basis. I don't think that the council, the present council, has any problems with working the IDA. We just want to be informed of what's going on. We want to know where your money's going, where it's being spent, how it's being spent. The same thing is what the citizens have the right to expect of us, the council, on how we're spending the taxpayers' dollar. That's all we're asking for. That's been my biggest concern for years, is not seeing the accountability and where the money is being spent. And it may be all on good projects. It may be on, which we don't have the right to say yay or nay on, which we don't need that right. That's your decision to make, not ours. But the financial end of it, I think, is where from the last time I was mayor and this time also, I think the financial situation has been one of the big deals, is not knowing where the money, when the money was, or how much money was coming in, not knowing where it's going. And I know we've talked about it, and it's in the Treasury report and everything, that I can go to the IDA meetings and get it every meeting. And I don't know if you guys, who's the liaison, Tom? Bill?
Yes.
Have you been picking those up?
No, I haven't been informed of the meetings, so I've only been to like, I think, 2 or 3, because I'm never notified of when the meetings are.
But that's where, you know, that's...
I think the way we'll...
Peter, I think that's what you've heard is what we want.
That's all I'm asking, is that, you know, we have transparency. We've got a great board. I mean, we've got great people. I have no problem with what's going on. I just want to see, I want to see the books. That's it. You know, that's all we...
Transparency,
Which I think is
see the books,
very
give a negative connotation that the IDA is not doing something correct. But the thing I'm telling you is that as we provide the minutes to each council member, they will have it, they can read it. As they will get our financial statements, they can have it, they can read it. You know, and that would probably be more information than anybody's ever had. I mean, even with you having liaisons.
Mr. Villaverde, can you introduce the IDA board?
Yes, starting at the end, Ty, would you address as to who you are and who you are?
We need you to get to speak into the mics, please, guys. It's going out over television.
My name's Jim Cox, longtime Florence resident, graduated high school here with a lot of you. My father was on the IDA board, my mother was on the IDA board, and this is my first term on the IDA board. A lot of our board members have been here from the absolute start of this. I was impressed by what IDAs can do in helping financing within our state, within our country, and within our community as well, if we get the chance to do that. I've put about 5 years into this so far, and we'll probably go ahead and fill out an application to do another 6 when my term comes up. It's fulfilling, it's good public service. Some of the contentions that are going back and forth between the council and the IDA don't need to happen at all. We're all part of the same community. We all get along real easy. The information's all here. You know, whether it got choked somewhere, I don't know. Emails go out to all of us on the board with all the information you're asking for. We can just add your emails to our email address, and you'll get every bit of the same information every board member gets. I guess that was more than an introduction.
My name's Fred Salaya. I was born and raised here in Florence, lived here all my life, and I can truthfully say that everything that the IDA has been for the good of our community, it's been for the good of Florence. And there's 2 main projects that I can verify is the development of Florence Garden, a retirement community, and the historical districting. Those 2 items have been a very good thing for Florence, and will continue until Florence exists. I don't know for how long. Thank you.
Barbara Kelly, I've been with the IDA for, I believe this is my 7th year. And I have been here in Florence for almost 40 years.
My name is Henry Padilla. I'm a lifelong resident here. My dad was, his dad was, and his dad before him. I've been with the IDA since 2004. I've spent almost 40 years in city and county government. And I thought when I came back to town after I retired that I'd try to help the community in some way or another. This has been the IDA was an option of something where I thought I could put my experience and my background to work here.
Yeah, I don't think any member of the council will say anything negative about what the IDA has done on the historical part of town of Florence Gardens. We just won't do that. But there are questions that we do have, and we'd like them answered, and that's what tonight is about, I think.
I don't see that the information that we had from the last bond request was enough information to make a decision, and that made it difficult for us to even to second that request. The motion was made and it wasn't second, and then it was what would you put it? The mayor decided at that point it was going to end. But what was really important to me is understand that any presentation that comes to us needs to have enough information for us to make a decision. I think it was looked at as this was going to be a walk in the park. It was just going to be decided. But I didn't have enough information to make a decision for myself, and that was just a concern. You know, when the mayor made a comment about, well, you know, you guys do all these bonding for private or charter schools, what are you doing but taking away the kids from public schools? The information he continued to provide was longer than the presentation was that was provided. And so I think that was the only thing we were asking for, I was looking for, was more information to assist us in making a decision. If I would have had more information as I received afterwards, I would have seconded that vote and I would have voted in favor of it. But, you know, if there's a concern where we're not receiving information and one of the council members can't make it, I'll volunteer and I'll attend the meeting. So that's something we try and do up here with each other, is help each other out, because we can't attend all the different community meetings and services that are provided that we have here in the town of Florence.
Councilman Montaño, that information was given to your liaison 1 week before our meeting.
Well, that's in the past. Today's a new day, the beginning of a new way to go.
I'd like to make a statement when you're
Go ahead,
finished.
Valerie.
First of all, I want to thank everybody that volunteers on the boards and commissions. And then I'd just like to remind our council members when we're speaking that we not speak for the group. When you're asking questions, that's your question, that you're not speaking for me. So I'd like to remind us to, if we have questions or concerns, that we don't say the council because you're not speaking for me. So that's one of my things that I would like to say. And, you know, there were some things at the last vote that I think we got emotional about. And I'm really sorry that I did not vote for that bond because I can see some of the things that the IDA are doing in town, and I appreciate the service that you give to the community.
Like I said, today's the beginning of a new position with the IDA. Are we hurt, and I'd go to the attorneys for this, with future bonding because of the bond that we turned down the other day? And if so, how do we correct it?
Got to try to get all these things plugged in here so I can hear and talk at the same time. I think that what you need to understand is that first, your board packages included a 6-page report letter from me reporting with regard to the financing and the information about it. I don't know if that was what you wanted or didn't want, but there's been a standing invitation to the council that if you had questions or wanted to discuss anything, to contact me. I was not contacted with regard to any questions regarding the financing or how it was done or the purpose of it or otherwise. A week or 10 days ahead of the council meeting, I had made a trip down here to Florence, met with Ms. Evans, got acquainted with her. She had taken over the role that your previous economic development people had played. And as my understanding from what's in your board packages on the meeting of the 17th of March was that there was a staff recommendation in support of the financing. What happened there that night, by the time people had left the parking lot, they had already been on the phone to the City of Phoenix Industrial Development Authority that scheduled a special meeting 2 days later, picked up the pieces where it were. The financing was successfully concluded, I think, in early May, and the approximately $50,000 that would have come to the Florence IDA was in turn paid to the Phoenix IDA, and that amount will be paid annually to them rather than to the Florence IDA. 2 people had come down here from Minneapolis to attend this meeting. No one asked a question of the underwriting team that was here. Nothing came up in the course of it. There was not a question from the council to the underwriters about the structure of the financing. And you ask if you've been hurt. I think the underwriting community is small, and it's going to be a while before people want to venture back down here to do business, I think. That's the blunt truth. And if somebody comes up with a project that wants to do a project here in Florence, there's plenty of other IDAs in the state that are perfectly happy to step in and do them. Predominantly the Pima County IDA and the City of Phoenix IDA certainly would do a project anywhere in the state. So I don't know where the business is going to come from right away. I mean, we can start spreading the word around that things are going to be more, you know, people aren't going to get embarrassed and have it shoved down their throat. But the ones that were here that night aren't going to come back.
Well, that's only one that we've turned down. So, you know, it's not like we're setting a precedent here.
Well,
that was, you know, one. And if that's going to ruin the IDA, that's, I don't know. I find that hard to believe, but whatever.
They can do things, I can do things, but these projects don't come up. The way a project financing usually comes up is that a underwriting team contacts different lawyers around and asks them where they would be comfortable taking a deal and whether a deal could be accomplished through it. This Florence IDA, since we started working with them about 6 or 7 years ago, have been a delightful group to work with. We've had educational meetings with them. We've written procedural guidelines and pamphlets for them, and their role has been to, I think, develop a relationship with the council. I think I've appeared before all of you on a number of occasions, and I think that you've welcomed me down here, and I appreciate that. I don't think that I've ever been asked a question that I haven't answered, I thought, to your satisfaction. But it's going to take a while to repair this kind of thing, because the people that call me aren't calling me today. Because they aren't calling me to say, we've got a deal, we'd like to take to Florence.
So I guess what you're saying is unless we okay everyone you bring to us, then it's going to ruin anybody coming to you? You mean just because there's one turned down that nobody else is going to do business?
I think it perhaps, sir, is how the thing get turned down. There was no call to any of us ahead of time saying, this thing's in trouble. There was some reason then that you concluded that this financing for the Legacy Charter School Group, when you had already done one for Legacy Charter School on adjoining properties and other things, that this one would not be accepted while the earlier one was. And the people do put some confidence in that kind of thing. There was no critique of their program and whether it was good or not. Now, I can certainly understand why Florence would like to see the projects done in Florence. That's a totally understandable thing. But it's not the lawyers that are bringing the thing in, and it's not the IDA that is. Somebody has to want to do a project, and then it has to be a project that is eligible under federal and state law for bond financing for it to be done on a bonding basis. And somebody's going to have to develop the projects and have them here in Florence if you don't want to do them out of Florence.
Okay, and then another thing, we've been told that, and I want this verified publicly, that you can give out as many bonds as you want for as long as you want, unlimited, without any liability to the town. Is that a fact, or is there a limit, or what? I mean,
there is no limit.
No limit.
There are limits imposed by the Internal Revenue Code based on a volume cap allocation that the state of Arizona receives, the amount of private activity tax-exempt bonding that can be done, but bond financings for nonprofit 501c3 organizations, which would be your typical hospitals, educational facilities, most of your charter schools are done as nonprofit 501c3s, are exempt from the requirement of getting a volume cap allocation. So there is no limit, so to speak, on the volume of things that can be done. It's not like tied to your taxing base or something like that you're used to in your municipal finance arena. The Arizona Revised Statutes expressly provide that the governing city or town or council, or county, does not have a pecuniary liability for the payment of the bonds issued by an industrial development authority, nor does it have any. The sole source of payment of the bonds, and is very clearly stated throughout all the bond proceedings, are the loan repayments that are made by the borrowing entity. So anytime, in the rare occasions that we've seen the financing develop some problems, it's been because something's gone wrong with the borrowing entity that has precluded it from making its loan repayments in a timely manner sufficient to pay the bonds.
okay, I just want...
I may have gotten a little afield there, but I'm...
Well, I just wanted that information out for the public so everybody knows, where we're at.
Mayor and members of council, I wanted to just let you know one of the reasons why staff wanted to work with the IDA to bring this work session to you is because we are trying to have a calming between the council and the IDA to create a community that is not volatile so that investors will consider coming to Florence and investing in our community. By them coming and seeking bonds in Florence, it does put a flow of monies back into the IDA that the IDA does use for the community. So we just want to get to where we can agree that, IDA has agreed that they're going to bring their financial statements to the council will see that, and that we can work together towards future projects that may be inside or outside of Florence for the betterment of Florence.
And once again, I just want to reiterate, I think we've got a good IDA. My only problem on this was the financial exposure, you know, and I was told that we couldn't get that. Now, you know, you can believe me or not, I have no reason to, you know, pull anybody's leg here, but
Well, Councilman Hawkins,
whatever.
Mayor, please, if I may, in the report memorandum that I prepared addressed to the council that was included in your board packages and is part of the record of your meeting on the 17th of March, this statement is made: no liability on the town of Florence. Under the provisions of ARS 35-742, the town of Florence shall not, in any event, be liable for the payment of the principal or interest on the bonds of the authority, or for the performance by the authority of any of its obligations with respect to its bonds, nor shall any agreements or obligations of the authority constitute an indebtedness of the town of Florence within the meaning of any constitutional or statutory provision whatsoever. That is a direct quotation from the statute. And this has been, I've been careful to put this in my communications to you on every bond financing. So it's been reiterated, I think, by me. I think you've asked me that question at every meeting.
There's another, that night of that meeting, as we think about it, the presentation made by you all was very short. It was very, there wasn't any presentation hardly. It's almost like, well, we'll just come in here and they're going to rubber stamp it.
Well,
and I don't know whose decision that was not to make a presentation to the council from the IDA. I don't understand that. We'd like to hear what's going on. We'd like to be able to talk to the people. They were here, but it didn't seem like anybody wanted to make a presentation to us. And am I wrong there? Other people's opinion the same thing?
I agree with what you said, and I'm also, you know, looking towards the future, and I believe that by having that transparency, by including us in the emails and keeping everybody in the loop as to what's going on, we can move together effectively for the benefit of Florence. We just need to make sure we have that open dialogue.
I think it was good. I'm glad that everybody came. You've heard our concerns. We've heard what you can do and how we can work together on it. I think from now on that we have an opportunity to go back. If what it sounds to me like after turning that bond down, now not only do you have to sell the Florence IDA, you have to sell yourself as the attorney that represents companies to go into the IDA, because I guess it was a slam in your face too when they came in from Minnesota or wherever and thought that they had it made. And that's what we want to know. And you've heard our concerns, and let's just continue the communications, keep them open, and let's go forward. Anybody else have anything they'd like to say?
I would just like to say on my behalf, I apologize for my vote. That's the only vote I can apologize for. And if there's anything we can do to help promote Florence, please let us know.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we're going to take a 5-minute break before we go on. Call the meeting back to order. You stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Kara?
Will you bow your head as I pray? Dear wise and loving Father, first let me say thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself and for the measure of health needed to fulfill our callings, for sustenance and for friendship. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. This evening I'm asking that you would graciously grant us the wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice and rightness, and confidence in what is good and fitting. In your most blessed name I pray, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is the first call to the public for comment, public comment on issues within jurisdiction of town council. Council rules limit public comment to 3 minutes. Individual council members may respond to criticism made by those commenting, may ask staff to review a matter raised, or may ask that a matter be put on a future agenda. However, members of the council shall not discuss or take any action on any manner during an open call to the public unless the matters are properly noticed for discussion and legal action. I have 2 requests to speak. Denise Colbert.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Denise Colern, Florence Gardens. I stand here tonight as a citizen of Florence and a patron of our library. In a few minutes, you are going to be asked to vote for funds for a new library building. I wish to make some points of why I think this is a good idea. Our library had 102,432 visits from April 1 to 13 to March 31st, 2014. They issued over 1,000 library cards. 19,116 public computer use sessions were held, equaling 17,561 hours. Hoopla Digital was introduced in December of 2013. This is a mobile app for thousands of movies, TV shows, and music albums to be used on most digital instruments offered to cardholders through the Pinal County Library District. More than 200 children and teens read a combined total of over 1,600 books in the summer reading program, which is just 1 month, in 2013. Yes, Florence Garden has a small library made up of donated books, but I can't visit them and ask if they have a certain book or a certain author, or can they get it from another library. Plus, they don't have e-books, and plus it isn't open to the public or children, and we do a lot in the library for children. We have a great librarian and a wonderful staff. They are all ready to help you at any time. There are many programs offered for children, teens, and adults. Some have had so many people attending that the library couldn't hold them all and had to be moved to a bigger place. We have 1 year before we have no building for our library. If we don't get a new library built, where will over the 100,000 visitors go for all the services our library now provides? Plus, just think of some of the other great things we could offer in a bigger building. Please vote to let this project go forward. A library is good for the citizens of our town. As you can tell, I am very passionate about this. I think our library is a small facility, but it does a wonderful job, but I think we can have even more done in a bigger building. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Art Buckley.
Art Buckley, Florence Gardens. My wife and I first came to Florence in 1992. We had business fairs in this community, and in '98 we settled here permanently. When selling property in Florence Gardens, we used to make a practice of sending people to Main Street, Florence, and the courthouse for a drive-by. We don't do that anymore, and have not done so for several years, and the reason is obvious. Town council has a very difficult job. They must first set priorities with finite resources in money and financing ability. To steal the motto of the U.S. Forest Service, they must decide what is the greatest good for the greatest number of people over the long haul. I respectfully submit that spending $13 million, and that was the sum in the budget for, at the location suggested for aquatic center, library, and recreation center is not a good usage of limited resources. There are several locations on Main Street where a library could be built with adequate parking in the back. The building should, of course, be designed to fit with the Main Street master plan. There are numerous abandoned buildings that would be suitable. The aquatic center should be postponed, and monies that were allotted to this center, some $7 million, once again, according to the budget, it's $5 million in your agenda now, should be used for the improvement of Main Street buildings. This improvement must, of course, be with and in conjunction of the private sector. These changes will take several years and will no doubt be much debated. It is very difficult to revitalize a small town Main Street once it has deteriorated to the extent of the town of Florence. It will require the town of Florence staff to do serious thinking and planning as to how to, but it requires most of all that the town council commit its thinking and direction to this aim to accomplish this. If the council does not commit to this task, I believe you will see further deterioration of Main Street. This will in turn cause business people and especially developers to ask the question, why Florence? With the answer being obvious. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ruth?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to talk about the library. The town staff proposes to build a library, an aquatic center, an activity center, and other town facilities, eventually including a new town hall, on 40 acres north of Heritage Park. The estimated cost has increased from $7 million to $11 million and now stands at $14 million, which might not include over $1 million to move the dirt in an attempt to raise the 40 acres out of the floodplain. Over 8,000 people per month have been walking through the doors of our town's library. They include students, preschoolers, and adults. The library is the cultural hub of this town. It offers to lend books, magazines, audiobooks, and films. It provides research materials and public computers. It brings in experts from out of town to present a wide range of cultural programs. The downtown Main Street would get a big boost if the library were located there. The plan for Padilla Park includes a large grassy area exposed to the sun. The idea is to have musical performances in that space, among other performances perhaps. I suggest that a better place for large crowds and musical performances is in the area around Heritage Park or even in on the 40 acres north of Heritage Park. So here's what I propose. Build the new library in place of Padilla Park's grassy lawn. Develop the property between the hotel and Granite Street as planned, which would allow plenty of room for tables and chairs and trees and benches and even a splash pad. Just think about it. There's not nearly enough parking available at Padilla Park for large crowds, but there's plenty of room for a library and enough parking spaces for those who will visit the library and those who will visit the hotel building. Please do what's best for the town. The library needs to be where people can walk to it and to nearby amenities. The library needs to be in the town, not on the edge of town. It needs to be in the heart of downtown. A library at Padilla Park, named for Ophelia Padilla, would be a wonderful living memorial to her. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to speak? Doretta?
Mayor Rankin and members of the council, I'm Doretta Allison, and I live out in Anthem. Do you need my address? Okay. And I just want, I know that a lot of times you get complaints and stuff, so I wanted to give you something really positive tonight. Last week, I had the opportunity to attend 2 graduations. One was at Anthem for the kindergarten, and it was so well done. And the children were so orderly and so into what they were doing, and they had practiced all this stuff. The place was packed. There were parents everywhere. It was standing room only, which I think is amazing. I've been to other things in Gilbert and Chandler where parents didn't have that kind of involvement, and I think that says something for the school. And then I got to go to the graduation at Florence High School on Thursday night, and I was so impressed by the awards, the music awards, the sports awards, the academic achievements that those kids had done, and all of the scholarships that were given to the students graduating. And I just thought that we need to give kudos to the Florence United School District for a good job that they're doing, and they are producing some really terrific kids, and hopefully some of them will stick around here and work in our community. And I just want to put a plug in for the library. I love the library, okay?
Thank you. Any other comment?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Been a long time.
Yeah.
My name is Betty Reefer, and I live in Old Florence. Just because it's gray on top doesn't mean it lives north of the river. I'd like to support putting the library at Heritage Park area. Many years ago, when this plan, the master plan, was being made, this land was bought at quite an expense to be able to build all these things together in one location. However, I think at this time we shouldn't go ahead spending so much money on the aquatic center and some of this stuff. I do believe we need that library. We're going to get kicked out. They haven't kicked us out of the swimming pool yet. So I think we need to consider that. Our library impressed me many, many years ago when it was in the old school building where the senior center is now. I needed a book for directions on how to make a lampshade. I went to our library. From Florida, they got me on the book. Got that book, I made that lampshade, and I have just been sold on this library. It's only become better. I also know that our winter visitors or people passing through town as tourists use that library because they go in and use those computer areas. Build it at Heritage Park. You can't see it, but this is my little map. And it's 20% further from the elementary school complex to the new library at Heritage Park than it is to the library on the south side of town. And it will get kids down here to the park and eventually to the new water feature. I support here. I do not support the whole big project. We need to be conservative, but we need the library. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. Any other member of the audience?
Hello, my name is Shirley Condit, and I'm a resident of Florence Gardens for the past year, but before that I lived right here in the town of Florence. And I'm here to speak about the library. I think one of the issues that some of our speakers haven't addressed is that libraries are considered part of the greater good. If you do a poll of people across the United States, they think, whether they use a library or not, they think that a community should have a library. And businesses often will not come into a community that doesn't have a library. And so I would like you to please take that into consideration whenever you're considering approving the funding for the new library, because economic development is very important here. I've been here 12 years, and I've seen what a struggle that you've had, you know, with trying to get businesses in. The other thing that I would like to address is that libraries have very specific needs. It's true that there are a lot of buildings along Main Street that are not occupied, but they're not suitable for libraries. The buildings can't support the weight of the bookshelves and all of the books, and the wiring may be out of date. As you know, if you've lived in an older home yourself, with all the computers and technology we have, that's really a big consideration. I would really hate to see the town of Florence delay so that there's a period of time when there's no library. I think it would be very bad for our economic development as well as for the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shirley, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
That being said about the library, can I also ask, how do you feel about the aquatic center and the other parts at this time?
I really don't have an opinion about that. It's not something that I personally would be using. So, and I know Parks and Recreation is very important for a community, but I can really only speak to the importance of libraries.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anybody else? Before I close it, I would like to remind everybody that the core of town, Florence Garden areas and Anthem area, are all Florence. Let's get that clear and let's pass that word that we are Florence. No matter where you live in these areas, we're Florence. Thank you. I'll call close to the public.
Item 7, presentation. Item 7A, quarterly financial report presentation by Finance Director Mike Farina. Mr. Farina.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Here tonight to present the third quarter financial report. A more comprehensive report is in your packet. I'm going to show some slides of highlights that are within that report. I'd like to first report that all revenues are meeting or exceeding their projections, as I stated in the second quarter report. This report is for the last 9 months, or as of March 31st, 2014. Also on the expenditure side, all expenditures are within budget and within funding availability, and that fund balances are projected to end normal and healthy fund balances. So I'll just touch on a few highlights that are coming from the report. First off are the revenues, and the first one is sales tax. You can see on this slide here that currently we're about $466,000 ahead of projections, seasonal projections, and at that rate we're looking to exceed by about $462,000 for sales tax, for total sales tax. On the breaking down the sales tax into its different components, general sales tax arising from private construction, sales tax coming from government construction, and also sales tax on food. You can see the makeup of that projected $462,000 general sales tax should exceed projections by about $212,000. Private construction about $290,000. The only projected decrease compared to budget is the government construction, and then food taxes. The food sales tax will exceed the budget as well. Looking at some of the state shared revenues, state shared sales tax, we have a projected, currently we're at about $19,000 ahead of projections, and taking that out the rest of the year, it looks like we may end up about $28,000 in the positive compared to budget. I also want to state that all of our revenues are exceeding the prior year. State shared income tax, that's a number we get from the state, so that's going to be right on to the projected amount in the budget. Vehicle license tax, currently we're ahead about $50,000, and that projects out to about $69,000, $70,000 for year end. Now just looking at the general fund as a whole, the revenue, we have currently we're about $405,000 ahead of projections, and just extrapolating that out through the end of the year, about $585,000 ahead of the budget for year end. And then on the general fund expenditure side, you can see right now 75% of the way through the year we're at 67% expended. That's pretty normal and typical for expenditures. And then you just have the different breakdowns by department and by the type of expenditure.
Does that include the CIP expenditures?
That's only general fund.
It's just a general fund.
I have a slide on the CIP coming up. Highway user revenue fund, Again, right now, the revenues, we're 75% collected, 75% of the way through the year. And just looking at the major revenues within the Highway User Revenue Fund, they're basically meeting projections. There's a slight variance, negative variance, however, I'd consider that meeting projections. On the transportation excise tax, that is exceeding projections, about 55,000 ahead of projections currently, and then projecting that out through the end of the year, about 78,000 ahead. And in the Highway User Revenue Fund, on the expenditure side, we've currently expended 20%, but looking at that, that's that low because of the large amount of budget we have in capital outlay, and only 3% has been spent. You can see the detail here as to what's been spent. I know that going into the fourth quarter, I've seen some requisitions come through, and we'll maybe start to see those numbers come up as projects are moving forward in the fourth quarter. Besides that, projects that are not completed by year-end, we'll have that in the budget going to be carried forward to complete in the following year. In the CIP fund, or the Capital Improvement Fund, you can see revenues were about $217,000 ahead of current projections, and for year-end, looks like we may end up about $290,000 ahead of budget. And here on the expenditure side, I've just narrowed this down to the projects that have actual dollars in them. The rest of the capital project budget, they have not been completed yet. So just to say, based on this, the full report has all of the total budget for the CIP and then what's been spent for each project. We have a total budget of $7.4 million, and to date, $2.3 million has been expended.
Before you go further on that one, we're getting close to the end of the fiscal year. Are you projecting that you're going to expend what we projected in the budget, or are we holding off projects, or why aren't we near meeting that?
There are projects that have started, projects that have not started yet, projects that are not reflected in the current year actual yet, because this is just cash basis, items that have been paid. There have been some requisitions that have come through, and we should start seeing payments on them. But at year end, the total budget will not be expended, and those projects will be carried forward in the budget to complete next year.
Is there a reason why we're not keeping up with those projects, or?
I would just say just timing and projects that the different departments are working on and working forward to get these completed. If you have any specific questions, I could ask the department, or we could.
It'll carry over to the next year, though. I just hate to see us falling behind in the projects. If we've got money that we've designated to expend for these projects, we should be getting them done. So.
I think it's timing, and we have a lot to accomplish, and it's just projects as we can move forward, we are moving forward.
Yeah. And then on the departments, were those vacancy savings, or what were the savings that we were coming in on the department expenditures?
Some of it's vacancy savings, some of it's just we budget conservatively, so you budget more expenditures, and then you want the expenditures to come in lower than the budget, and then alternatively on the revenue side, you're going to budget conservatively on the revenues lower and hope that they come in higher. So it's just conservative budgeting practices to where you're going to end up less than the budgeted amount.
All right.
On the utility funds, revenues, about 68% are received. And again, on the capital outlay, 1% is complete. However, there are projects that are moving forward, and that number should be quite a bit following the fourth quarter. However, again, there will be funds that need to be carried forward to continue on those projects. And that was water. Same scenario with wastewater. 55% of the revenues have been received. Revenues are covering expenditures. On the sanitation side, same thing. Revenues are at 55% received, and expenditures 71%. And this, if you remember, the sanitation is where we went to a contract rather than personal services. So we do have some employee, or one employee, I believe, working in that fund. However, most of that is now under contract with RAD.
Can you go back to the wastewater there? Yeah. Hang on a minute. What are we looking at as far as the revenue over budget that we projected coming in?
I'm sorry, what was that question?
How much more over, when we set the budget, we anticipated X amount of dollars coming in, correct?
Right. We projected about $4.7 million in revenue, and we're currently at about $2.6 million received so far year to date.
And
or
that's through 3
55%.
quarters? So it doesn't look like we're going to meet our projections there.
No, it doesn't look like it. However, there will be revenues to cover the expenditures that are happening. And bottom line, the fund will end up in a healthy fund balance.
There will be a fund balance, you anticipate? There'll be a fund balance,
Yes.
is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Are we taking that from someplace else to bring that up?
No, these funds are self-sustaining. They're their own fund. The utility funds are enterprise funds, and those funds support themselves. So there's no other transfers into those funds to support them.
I guess the thing I had a question with is 55%, but we're 75% through the budget. And you're going to gain 45% in a 3-month period?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor and Council, I should point out on this one, a lot of that, if you look at the wastewater fees, that's really the true number as far as the fees go. The loan proceeds, that's what's bringing that number down to 55%, $870,000. That's a WIFA loan that we have not drawn down on the proceeds yet, waiting for a project to move forward. So the number more to focus on is the 68%, which it still is less than the 75, but it's certainly not the 55.
I guess I'm like Bill, it looks like we're going to end up in the short end of it rather than being able to just cover the cost.
The wastewater fees are at 68%, but looking at on the expenditure side, personal services are at 63%, purchase services are at 53%. So there's still, the revenues aren't meeting where we would like it to be for the budget. However, the expenditures are doing the same.
And then next year, do we have an increase coming up?
Yes, that's on the agenda tonight as well.
Okay. That's all I have on that.
Okay. And with that, if there are any other questions from council?
Anybody else have any questions? Okay, Mike, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Need a motion?
Make a motion to adjourn to Merrill Ranch Community Facility District Number 1 Board.
Second. We have a motion and a second to adjourn to Merrill Ranch Community Facility District Number 1 Board. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Can I ask who seconded that motion?
Reuben.
Reuben.
All right, thank you.
Right.
Apologize. Item 8A, resolution number MRC FD1 126114. Discussion, approval, disapproval of a resolution of the District Board of the Merrill Ranch Community Facility District Number 1 exercising the option to redeem Merrill Ranch Community Facility Districts Number 1, Florence, Arizona Special Assessment Lien Bonds, current and future assessment areas, and delegating certain matters with respect thereto to the District Treasurer of the District. Mr. Freeman?
Who's going to make that? Mike?
Board members, as you know, we have 2 CFD districts, District Number 1 and District Number 2, and within those districts, public improvements are completed, streets, curb and gutter, drainage, et cetera, within specific areas of the CFD districts. To complete those public improvements, special assessment lien bonds are issued, and to repay those special assessment lien bonds, each lot owner or each property has a $3,500 or $3,500 a special assessment for that property, which is then repaid over the course of 20 years. The bonds are also issued for a 20-year period, and that's how they're repaid, through these special assessments on each property. Now, the bond documents for those special assessments, or for the districts, allow for prepayment of those special assessments. And throughout the year, we do receive homeowners that come in, or property owners that come in and prepay their special assessment, so they pay off the whole $3,500 or a part of it. And when we collect that, there is no more interest being received because they're prepaying their special assessments. So what we're required to do, what we must do then, is take and, with the funds that we've received in prepayment of those special assessments, we must pay down the debt. And that's what this item is tonight, and the one in CFD District Number 2 is also for, is we calculate how much money the town or the district has received in special assessment payments from the owners, and then we have to pay down the special assessment bonds in that amount. So that way the bonds are not still accruing interest. However, we have no interest coming in to the district to repay that interest in the future. So with that, in this district, District Number 1, you can see the assessments and the amount that we've received in prepayments. So therefore, the amount we need to turn around and pay the bonds down. Assessment Area 1 is $359,000. Assessment Area 2 is $31,000, and Assessment Area 3 is $11,000. I think I drafted this memo a little bit earlier than when I got final numbers, so those numbers have changed somewhat. However, it's the same thing. It's prepayments that we've received, and then also, because we've received the prepayment, we also have to take into account the debt service reserve that is associated with those prepayments. So the numbers here, they're a little higher due to the reduction in the debt service reserve that's required, and this is all required under the bond documents. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions, Mike?
I do. Not related directly to this motion itself, but with the bonds and the prepayments, have we figured out a system yet where the residents can get a yearly update of what they still owe on their?
Yes, we've been talking internally in the finance department as to how to make that happen, so we will come up with a way.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, need a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number MRCFD1 126-14.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt resolution MRCFD 126-14. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Need a motion?
Make a motion to adjourn from the Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District 1 Board.
Second. We have a motion and a second to adjourn from the Merrill Ranch Community Facility District 1 Board. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Need
Make a motion to adjourn to Merrill Ranch Community Facility District Number 2 Board.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn to Merrill Ranch Community Facility District Number 2 Board. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Same thing as what it was before, Mike?
Mayor and Council, that's what I was going to say. District Number 2, same explanation that I gave in District Number 1. I'll stand for any questions.
And the numbers in our work on number 1 is for assessment district number 2, right?
The assessment area number 1 is $293,000. The assessment area number 2 is $3,000 in prepayment. Assessment area number 3, $18,000. Assessment area 4 is $6,000, and then we add to that the reduction in debt service reserve.
Any other question? Hearing on.
I make a motion to adopt resolution number MRCF D2 226-14.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt MRCF D2 226-14. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
I make a motion to adjourn from the Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District Number 2 Board.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn to from Merrill Ranch Community Facility District Board Number 2. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Item 12, consent. All items indicated by an asterisk will be handled by a single vote as part of the consent agenda unless a council member or a member of the public objects at the time the agenda is called. Item A, resolution number 1444-14, adoption of a resolution of the Town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, adopting the Town of Florence recommended fiscal year 2014 and 15 employee compensation and benefits plan. Item B, resolution number 1445-14, adoption of resolution of the Town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, ordering the abandonment of right-of-way easements adjacent to the CCA property, Florence, Arizona, as described within the attached exhibits 1, 2, and 3. Item C, adoption of notice of intention to increase water and wastewater utility rates and fees as set in a public hearing date of July 7, 2014 on proposed increases. Item D, ratification of accepting donations totaling $2,250 from Pulte Southwest Value Partners and Arizona Public Service to offset the cost of exhibitor space at the Retail Real Estate Convention. Item E, approval to hire Sunrise Engineering to conduct downtown water line alignment studies in an amount not to exceed $39,658. Item F, authorization to dispose of equipment as listed on the June 2nd, 2014 request for council action form per town policy. Item G, authorization to forward a favorable recommendation to the Arizona Department of Liquor License and Control for Pinal Mounted Posse application for a special event liquor license for a fundraiser being held July 4th, 2014 at Heritage Park. Item H, approval of accepting the register of demands ending April 30th, 2014 in the amount of $1,800,476.26. Mayor and member of council, that is your consent agenda item for consideration.
Does any member of the council like anything taken off the consent agenda?
Yes, item A, please.
A. Any other? Any member of the public have anything they'd like taken off the consent agenda? Hearing none, we need a motion with the exception of item A.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item A.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item A. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now let's go on to item A.
Mayor and members of council, item A is a resolution for adopting the classification plan. This is the same plan that was discussed at our previous work session with council on the budget. I will go ahead and have Scott represent the information previously presented.
Mayor and council, we're asking this evening, as per what has happened in the past years, to adopt our compensation and classification plans for employees for the upcoming fiscal year. As we indicated during the study session presentation, the current proposal does not do anything, doesn't make any changes to the employee pay plan. It doesn't make any changes to the currently assigned pay ranges that are assigned to our classifications. What it does, it adds 2 new classifications, and this is based on the budget proposal that's before you right now. That's the position of graphic design, digital media specialist, and police recruit, and the pay ranges assigned noted in the RCA. It also includes 11 title changes, and this is part of the study that we did to kind of clean up and make our position classification titles a little more descriptive. So those are the only changes that are made to the classifications, and then the other part of this is authorizing increases based on performance, or we call them merit increases, town personnel, up to 4% based on performance. Those are done in conjunction with the employee annual evaluation. Based on that information, I'll answer any questions you have.
Tara?
My first question was directed actually towards the police chief. Could you explain a little bit about the police recruit position?
I'd be glad to handle that if I could, please.
Absolutely.
Essentially, what we have done in the past is when we bring a new police officer on board and a entry-level recruitment, that is, an individual who does not currently have certification that's required under AZ Post, we bring them in a police recruit status. We should be bringing them in a police recruit status. And what this does will allow that to happen in a formal way, 10% under our current entry-level pay range for police officers. So when someone comes on, they're placed in that classification, they go through the academy, then they come out of the academy and go through our field training officer program, and upon successful completion of both of those components, then they would be moved to the entry-level step of the police officer classification.
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the police officer entry level comes in at $42,353, but the police recruit entry level is $40,312, so that is about 5%.
I'm going to...
Page 52.
Police recruit at 40, police officer at 42. You are correct. I misspoke. That's 5%, not 10%.
Have we had police recruits in the past, Chief Hughes?
No. No, we have not.
Okay.
In Florence's history, though, we have had police recruits and we have put people through the academy.
Okay. Is it beneficial to start them 5% lower than our general officers? Or do we want to look at that being the 10%?
If I could say something, Tara.
Mm-hmm.
I have a little experience in this. I think that is the proper way to do it, to bring them in at a lower rate. We're paying them to go to school, and you're not getting any use out of them except you're providing the education for them. They're not working at all. And they're not on the field. They haven't done their field training or whatsoever. So bringing them in, rather than take a lateral transfer in, this is a better way to do the recruiting process and then bring them up. It gives them a little incentive to complete it all. And I don't know if you disagree or agree, Dan.
This is basically only for the ones that will be going through the academy. As you said, if we're going to bring them in laterally, it's different. We can put them right in the FTO program, shorter period of time, and then on the street much quicker.
And do we have any sort of contract in place that guarantees that they'll stay with us?
No.
Is that something that we can do? Like, for example, when I worked at the hospital, if they put you through school to be a nurse, you signed on that guaranteed you would work for them for a minimum of 5 years. If you left before that 5-year period, then you needed to pay back on a pro-rated basis.
Councilman, that's a really great question, and I've seen that tried in the past. It really doesn't work very well. Hopefully that when you do the recruiting, you'll have people that want to stay with you, and we've been very fortunate. We've had no turnover, but it's very hard to institute that type of contract. If people really want to go, they're going to figure out a way to go. It's unfortunate, but I've had that happen in the past. But here in Florence, we've had really good response. People come here because they want to come here and stay.
Okay, thank you.
One of the issues they have is that when they go out looking to fill a position, they look to find somebody who's already certified through Arizona Post. When they do get a cadet, they have to get certified through Arizona Post as well. The problem is there's probably a 40% chance that an individual will not pass. They'll flunk out, and so you don't want to pay them a full salary at that point. So I think it is good to look at a lower rate when you start them off, and then that way they have to earn it and actually receive their badge and their certification before they get the full amount.
That's a golden incentive for them.
On this same topic, except let's go to part-time, paid on-call fire department positions hourly. Are these just the suggestions that which would be used if we had one, or do we have those people already on? I'm looking at a part-time fire captain.
At the current time, we don't have any part-time fire captains, Mr. Vice Mayor. When I first arrived, we did have a part-time position, which was our training captain, that we no longer utilize.
Okay, so some of them aren't filled at this time, no matter what.
That's correct.
Is that something that we would be looking to fill in the future? Is there a need there?
That's another great question. Probably not. My philosophy is there's no reason why we need to hire somebody else from another fire department to train our people. We have well-qualified people in our fire department that can do that, and that's why I made the decision not to rehire that position.
Okay. So is this something that we can strike from this document altogether since it's not relevant to our department?
I don't plan on using any part-time captains in the future, no.
Okay. So from what I'm hearing, I believe that it would be beneficial to look at for the police department, for the recruit, to start 10% lower, and we can talk about this as a whole council, maybe a vote of striking out the position classifications regarding the part-time firefighter, part-time engineer, part-time captain, because those aren't relevant to the department.
The part-time firefighter is. We do currently have part-time firefighters, just the engineer and the captain that we don't utilize.
Okay. Thank you.
I thought the percentage on the recruit was 5% instead of 10.
Chief and I had talked about it, and I think we landed on the 5% instead of 10%. It will vary. It's not unusual for other cities or towns to have a cadet or a recruit status, and it goes back and forth. I think we talked about it and ended up at 5%. As far as the part-time fire captain or fire engineer, these are positions that are included in our salary schedule, just a matter of convenience information. They're not regular positions in the sense of all of the positions that are in the regular salary schedule. These are part-time positions. They have no rights, and the personnel policy doesn't apply to them. That information is simply in here because it has been in there. So, as far as including it or not including it, I don't know that it's the critical element. If it makes council feel more comfortable to exclude that, we certainly can do that. But it's, as is noted there on page 404, temporary positions assigned to ranges for convenience is the heading for both the lifeguard positions as well as the part-time firefighter position. So that's the explanation.
Okay. And also, can you clarify just for us what we talked about prior to the meeting when we discussed the firefighter recruits when they're hired on full-time, because there was that issue when they were hired on full-time that they were making more than the regular full-time firefighters, and you said that you had handled that situation, but just to vocalize that for the rest of the council's benefit?
You asked Chief Zick and I a specific question about the practices of the town in relationship to our part-time firefighters. Again, I'll answer that question in the context that these individuals do not have coverage under the city's personnel policy, and the normal procedures of performance evaluation and moving through the pay range are not a policy issue, but they're administrative in nature. It's what we've chosen to do over the course of time in the direction of the town manager. There was some issue that was created in the tenure that was reflected in part-time service as those individuals are moved into full-time service. And there was initially, after I came on board, there was initially one individual where they were moved into the full-time role and received credit for the service they had as a part-timer. That put them in a position of potentially making more money than someone who had more time as a full-timer. And we wanted to avoid that. We've clarified that. We've eliminated that practice. So we are still achieving, doing our evaluations of our part-time staff, and there's some dollars that will come with that. But as we move those individuals into full-time openings, they will not, the service credits or the time in service that they received as a part-timer will not transfer over to full-time service. They'll start back.
Excellent, thank you. And my final comment is really just a correction, a typo on deputy town manager. It states that he makes $80, well, not he makes, but $80.92 rounded up a year, so we just need a comma instead of a period.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Pretty good wages. Anybody else having discussion on item A? Hearing none, I need a motion.
Make a motion to accept item A.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt consent agenda item A. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
New business, item A, canvass of the May 20, 2014 special election and approval of the election results. Mayor and member of council, on May 20th, we held our first ground election in a really long time. Town Hall was our polling site, and the question before the public was, should the town of Florence purchase Johnson Utilities? That election, the town of Florence had one precinct at Town Hall. The number of ballots cast at that precinct was 107 votes. The number of ballots cast via early voting was 1,415. The number of provisional ballots we received were 14, and the number of ballots rejected was 119. The number of votes cast were as follows. So if you look at the polling site was 107, that's 2.61% of the town's vote was received at the polling site. At the polling site, 21 people voted yes and 86 people voted no. In the early ballots, we received 1,415 votes. That's 34.49% of the people who voted. 839 voted yes and 576 voted no. Provisional ballots received was 14 or 0.34%. 6 voted yes and 8 voted no. The total ballots cast for this election was 1,536 or 37.44%, with 866 people voting yes and 670 people voting no. Does the mayor and council have any questions about the results of the election?
The number of ballots rejected, is that kind of high?
No, actually, that's not high. If you get a ballot back and someone does not properly sign the outside of the ballot, or if they bring back in their ballot because they've made mistakes on it, those are rejected ballots.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I make a motion to approve of accepting the 2014 special election results and canvassing the election.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the accepting of the 2014 special election results and canvassing the election. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
A new business, item B, resolution number 1446-14. Discussion, approval, disapproval of a resolution of the town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, approving the pre-annexation and development agreement with Howard L. Hawk, an individual, and authorizing the execution of such pre-annexation and development agreement for annexation number 2013-02 Heritage Estates property. Mr. Olguin will be handling this item. Mr. Olguin?
Thank you. Mayor, council members, we have a pre-annexation agreement, as mentioned, with Howard L. Hawks. This property is the Heritage Estates property. There's an image in front of you that shows you the location. You've seen a few of these. You'll be seeing a few more before the annexation is over. This property is generally bounded by Copper Basin Railroad to the west, Felix Road to the east, Arizona Farms Road to the north, and Anthem Ranch Community to the south. This property is about 48 acres. It's within the subject side of the annexation area. And that's pretty much it. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, or we could have the attorney have any specific questions about the pre-annexation agreement.
Any questions?
I'm just, I've got one that, on these annexations, a lot of this, is it already platted, and do they already have agreements with the county? Or have they already got an agreement with the county on impact fees? When, you know,
yes.
Previous to us annexing them, will that keep us from getting impact fees on some of this property? Because I hear Maricopa had a real problem with that.
I defer this to the town attorney when it comes to impact fees.
Thank you, Councilmember Hawkins and members of the council, Mayor, Vice Mayor. If I understood your question correctly, Councilmember Hawkins, it was kind of a general question. the terms of these development agreements that we've been negotiating as part and parcel of the process of trying to complete the annexation, they vary in their terms, but this particular development agreement contains its own provisions regarding impact fees. And what we have structured in this agreement in paragraph 6C is that for this development, the impact fees that are applicable will be the impact fees that are in existence as of the date of the annexation. And what we are agreeing to in this agreement is to hold those fees for 5 years. And then after the 5-year period expires, then whatever the development fee is at the time of pulling a building permit would be the applicable fee. So basically what this does for the developer is provide him with the certainty that his impact fees will be those that are in force and in effect as of the date of the annexation.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at, I don't know. I've heard or whatever, that Maricopa, when they incorporated and then they, you know, annexing, that a lot of that land was already, you know, developed through the county, and that therefore they didn't get any impact fees, and it kind of hurt them on their overall cost.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm just wondering, are we going that same direction?
Right, and so let me answer that. I'm familiar with the example you just cited. In fact, it became the subject of a Court of Appeals decision because the town of Maricopa in that matter had decided that they did not want to be bound by the county's development agreement. So what happened in that case was that the developer had an existing development agreement that had been signed by the developer in Pinal County, but it was the development agreement for that property at the time of the annexation. And so the court decided, and I think rightfully so, that the county was going to be bound by the terms of that development agreement because it had not been changed prior to the annexation. And in fact, yes, that development agreement provided that there would be no impact fees applicable to the development of the property. And so this is a pre-annexation development agreement. And so through this agreement, we are, let's say, reforming the agreement. Whatever agreements that this developer may have had with the county are not going to be applicable. This is going to control because the developer has signed this agreement prior to the annexation. And so we now have a binding agreement with this developer that will control the terms and conditions of the development of the property. This agreement is effective if we have the annexation. If the annexation fails or does not take place, then this agreement will be null and void as to both parties.
Okay, and we're trying to do this on most of our annexations.
Yeah, all of them.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions?
When I read through this, am I understanding correctly in the fact that they are going to also need to form a community facilities district in regards to their public infrastructure?
Well, it's, thank you, Councilmember Walter. It's not required of them. What this development agreement allows for is the possibility of the creation of a community facilities district. The developer would still have to come to the town and submit an application for the formation of a district and then go through all the normal processes that would take place as part of the town doing its analysis as to the feasibility and the propriety of actually creating a community facilities district. So it gives the developer the option to do that, but it is not a mandatory requirement.
But if he did not form a community facilities district, then am I correct in understanding that he is still responsible for putting in the roads and the infrastructure, so that cost would most likely be passed along to the homeowners in that form?
Well, I guess that you could say that. I mean, it's always an interesting question as to the extent to which the costs of building infrastructure to support a subdivision get passed along in the form of the home prices or not. you know, depending on whether you have a district in place. But in any event, as you can see from the example of Pulte Home Corporation, for the most part, the bonding authority of the district has been used to issue general obligation bonds that have gone to reimburse the developer for the creation of infrastructure, and in part for the oversizing of the infrastructure. An example of that is having a 6-lane Hunt Highway at a time when the traffic count might only support a 4-lane. So the option is for the developer to apply to us to see if we would be willing to create a community facilities district, which presumably would be utilized from time to time to reimburse the developer for the costs of building certain types of infrastructure. But it's all optional. It's not like a mandatory program.
And other than the development in the homes itself, is this developer willing to bring anything else to the table for the town of Florence?
For that, I would have to turn to the developer's attorney. We have Mr. Ralph Pugh here tonight. Mr. Pugh, would you care to address that?
Mayor, council members, thank you for the opportunity to address that issue. This is a development that went through the processes in the county for a relatively small subdivision considering the overall annexation of the area, and it does contain homes, but as far as offering something more to the town, I think the answer to that is we don't have anything to offer. It's a residential plat, and we would like to join your annexation and be a part of it and participate in it, but I can't say that there's something that we have to give. It's a small project, frankly.
Possibly a park within your community?
I can't remember, I don't have the plat in front of me, whether or not, I'm sure there's open space in the project, but there's not a public park. I do know that, council member. Are you setting a park that would be dedicated to the municipality?
Exactly, because as we're growing and as we're expanding, is there a possibility to partner and work together and talk about creating that type of an area out there? Because according to the new legislature that was passed, we're going to, need to look at parks and where to put them as we expand.
Yeah. Mayor, council member, this plan does not have room for a public park. I think you have a large annexation coming in that's a master plan community. There may be chances there, but not on this small triangular piece.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Mayor, council, if I may. Overall, the entire annexation areas, both annexation areas, the Magic Ranch, Oasis Magic Ranch area, and also the Arizona Farms annexation, Mr. Eckhoff has looked at the overall plan for the entire area with all the developments and all the pieces of the annexation coming forward, and he has already set for certain areas, whether there be a fire station, open space area, parks areas, and while this area here may not contain it, there are other areas in the annexation that have already been set aside for those purposes.
Can we have a work session or like that information?
Councilmember Walters, Council, Mr. Eckhoff, as he's brought these things forward, he has identified those items as these annexations come forward. They are coming forward individually, not as a whole, as each one of these is negotiated independently of the others, and they are not required to work with each other to make those requirements happen.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Need a motion?
Make a motion to adopt resolution number 1446-14.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt resolution 1446-14. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Item C, approval of task order number 6 with Waterworks Engineering for the South Water Wastewater Treatment Plant Expansion Planning and Development Design and the tertiary filters design and construction in the amount not to exceed $249,398. Mr. John Mitchell will be handling this item.
Mayor, members of the council, good evening. As was stated, this is an approval of task order 6 with Waterworks Engineers. Mr. John Mata with Waterworks is in attendance this evening should there be any questions. In 2009, council entered into an agreement with WIFA to provide for master planning, the expansion of our south wastewater treatment plant, as also included in that was to do some filtration of the effluent. I met in late July, early August of last year with members of WIFA, and they have been and are remaining anxious that we get this project moving. It is on the CIP, and we would like to move forward with Task Order 6 with Waterworks engineers to allow the master planning for future expansion, as well as the design and construction of the tertiary filtration system. I would be happy to answer any questions. Again, Mr. Mata is present as well.
Does anyone in council have a question? It was nice and easy. I accept a motion at this time.
Make a motion to approve task order number 6 with Waterworks Engineers for the Southwest Wastewater Treatment Plant expansion planning and preliminary design and the tertiary filtration design and construction.
Second.
I have a first and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Council.
Item?
Vice Mayor and members of council, at this time we are going to entertain item E. Item E is discussion approval, disapproval to approve a settlement agreement for Curis Resources, Arizona, Inc. versus the Town of Florence, Pinal County Superior Court case number CV 2012-01097 as recommended by the risk pool.
Mayor, council members, as you may recall, in 2012, the town, for safety reasons, went forth and closed the administration building of Florence Copper Curis building out there right off of Hunt Highway. In the last few years, this case has been moving forward through mediation and also the courts. The risk pool has recommended that they would like to go ahead and settle this case on behalf of the town, and the settlement in this item is $100,000, which the risk pool will be paying on behalf of the town. The town is responsible for approximately $5,000. Now, in this settlement, it does not mean the town has done anything wrong or is at fault for anything whatsoever. This is purely a recommendation on behalf of the risk pool to settle this case and close it at this time. So that is my presentation at this time. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any discussion? Tommy? Need a motion?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the settlement agreement for Curis Resources Arizona, Inc. versus the Town of Florence, Pinal County Superior Court case number CV 2012-01097 as recommended by the risk pool.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the settlement agreement for Curis Resources Arizona Incorporated versus Town of Florence. Superior Court case CV 2012-1097 as recommended by the risk pool. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mayor and member of council, next we'll be handling item F on the agenda. There is a typographical error in item F. Item F should have been our last agenda item. You can see that a hard enter was, hard return created a new item G, and that actually reads as one item. So the item is actually public notice on Johnson Utilities LLC's motion to withdraw from the Arizona Corporation Commission's proceedings. And this item is information only for council, and those notices were included in your packet.
Do any member of the council like to have any comment? Mr. Johnson, do you still want to speak to the council in a work session? Okay. Thank you. Okay, before we go into the park issues, we are going to take another break here. We've been going for another hour and a half, so we're going to call the meeting back to order.
new business, item D, project update on the construction of municipal facilities consisting of a library, outdoor aquatic complex, recreation space, programming offices, outdoor fields, and government facilities. Mr. Montoya will be handling this item.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm going to, there is a PowerPoint presentation before you, but in the interest of time, because I do want to say a lot of the drawings that you see in there are just renderings. They're just thought-provoking, diagrams so the council has something to look at in the future and ask questions about. In addition, part of this process is, Ms. Rosemary Ribris and Mr. Brian Hughes have already begun communicating with their respective boards. However, there is a long iterative process that's still coming forward that needs to happen with them, with council, and with staff. And what we are ultimately asking for tonight is looking at asking town council for authorization to hire a project manager to start assisting with that process, much like we did on Fire Station 2, and also to begin the dirt work, which town council has not only approved and budgeted the last several years to start that, but we're requesting that. And we're also looking at trying to find the additional funding to do that. There are a handful of slides in here. I do want to go through some of them. I'm not going to, I've let staff know that I'm going to handle the majority of this presentation tonight, and I'll go through those, and if council has any questions, by all means, please ask. But I think that the slides that I'll present to you, hopefully that'll be thought-provoking. Hopefully we can get your guys' thoughts and direction tonight. In addition, we will set up a more thorough work session once we can get a project manager on board that'll help that process with the community to begin, which is where it's really going to happen. So let me start off by, the first slide is, council's been talking about long-term vision for a while. The last several years, everything I've looked at talks about having a vision for community looking forward. The rendering you see before you is a rendering that was presented to us by Low Mountain. Now this process with Low Mountain, they were one of 5 vendors that was selected to provide a bid to the town, a project bid to the town, and a conceptual design process. And they're also one of 21 respondents in the initial RFQ. They are one of the low bidders. Their project cost right now is approximately $13 million. However, this is just a rendering. It's thought-provoking. That doesn't mean that's where the building is going to be, that's what's going to be contained in it, that's what the park's going to be. It is a negotiation process. Once you bring a project manager on board, once you involve your boards and commissions, the parks, and the library board, they get their input and input from town council. But also, we've been talking this last year or two about quality of life and also planning for the future. And staff has been working through this process, so you'll see over the next few slides, for the last 4 or 5 months in trying to select vendors, not only on the dirt process, but the project manager and also a potential construction company. As we try to keep moving forward, you'll look that what we're trying to do, and we've been trying to do this last few years, is establish a core service and service levels throughout the town that residents, whether you live in Anthem, whether you live in Florence Gardens, whether you live in the core of Florence, that you have complementary services, whether it be a swimming pool, whether it be a library, rec centers. Now, are we going to have to look at potentially building a library in the future somewhere in the north? Absolutely. But right now we're looking at trying to put a library on a site that the town council purchased a number of years ago. And why that site? One, there's no additional infrastructure cost to buy the land. If we were to go buy a building, we're going to probably spend $4 or $5 million to buy that building. If it's in the downtown area, which town staff did spend a considerable amount of time looking at buildings, can't do it. There's not one building in the downtown area that can support a library. Primarily the weight of the books. 2, there's no building in the downtown area that can handle the foot traffic or car traffic. And working with Public Works, there's none of those streets can handle the volume, and we don't have the parking space. So in looking at this, we would try to find those services that will affect the entire population of the town. Now, whether you're older active adults, whether you're families, or you're teenagers and children. Now, for a number of those categories, those people don't have a lot to do here in town. So they leave town, go somewhere else, or they don't do anything. So what we've been trying to do is, when we found that there was an issue that we were going to have to find a new library in the immediate future, It's also better to plan ahead, and libraries are complementary to rec centers, to aquatic centers, to downtown areas, because it brings foot traffic and car traffic. So we looked at building an entire facility around that. Excuse me. The recommendation you see before you encompasses all that and brings forth a number of revenue streams that can be utilized to make sure whatever town council's vision and the Board of Commission's visions are, that they come forward through that process. Now, what this will also do is allow for additional summer and part-time jobs for our high school kids and adults. A lot of kids in the community do not have job opportunities, do not have those community service abilities, and doing a facility such as this and building onto Heritage Park will create those possibilities. It will also be a regional attraction. There's nothing else in the area where people can come in and pay a fee, whether you're outside, when you're not a resident of Florence, can pay a fee and come here to a park and recreation to have these activities. So it would draw revenue into the town and allow for paying for this facility. And again, it would create that vehicle and foot traffic in the town core and the downtown areas. Going through these, the DIRT process, the infrastructure, the Clomar-Lomar process has been a 2-year process, and that started in 2012, I believe, and we've just been through the Lomar and now going through the Clomar process. We have been, Town Council has been looking at this and planning this in the budget for the last 5 years. The recommendation that we did an RFP. It was a 6-week process. It was reviewed by the entire committee of staff, which includes Parks and Rec, Library, Public Works, Community Development. We also had Dan Bonneau from Pulte assist us on that, and it incorporated finance, myself, and Mr. Knutson as well. The recommendation basically came out of the scope of work and the cost and the vendor experience. It was not the lowest bid, but because the lowest bid on that list did not carry the scope of work that it needed to, we could not go with the lowest bid. The project manager, Swan Architects, was involved with the town in the planning of the Territory Square process. He was not only the main participant in that, but he was also the lowest bidder in this process. So the recommendation for him for the town to use was based on his experience, the cost, and knowledge of the entire town of Florence. Facility planning. This was about a 3.5-month process. We started with the RFQ, as I said, then the RFP. All these items, all 3 of these, included the involvement of Dan Bonneau from Pulte to make sure that we had an outside developer that was experienced enough to handle a lot of these things and to give input to us as staff. So this was reviewed by the entire staff. The staff recommended moving forward with them primarily because of the scope of work, the cost, they were the lowest bidder, their vendor experience, and the timeline for the entire project, which they anticipate a phase-in approach between the library being completed in the May-June timeframe and then the aquatic center in the park somewhere towards the end of the year. So it was an entire process. They were the low bid. Having said that, that doesn't mean the potential $13 million would be the final cost. Depending on what input the vendor received with the project manager from town council, each board and commission, that price may go up and it may go down. It may also go down once our engineers look at the infrastructure planning and whether or not there could be cost savings found in other areas of the plan that they submitted to the town. So, let me move forward with a few other items. The preliminary cost estimates, Rommel Construction for the dirt removal. This is, keep in mind, this is only for the 40 acres. The town owns 160 acres out there. This is simply to bring 40 acres out of the floodplain so that the building and construction could start happening once the final recommendation and approval is made by town council on a contractor for the building component. Swan Architects, the project manager, the cost is $270,600. Low Mountain, as I said, it's approximately $13 million at this time, but it is not the final price to be negotiated, and depending on what input they receive with use of the contractor moving forward in the process. I did put the comment on the bottom, it's always more efficient, cost efficient to build new than purchase and remodel. It is always the case. We did spend a considerable amount of time looking at other buildings that are available in the town. It's just simply too costly to purchase the building and then remodel it. And we would have significant limitations as to what programming could be done in those buildings. Last, on this slide, what I wanted to show you is there have been comments as to where the funding's coming from. These items above that say restricted use, none of these can be used for roads, none of these can be used for sidewalks. These are restricted primarily for libraries, for open space, for parks, for municipal buildings, and cannot be used for any other purpose. What we did put this slide together is for one reason. The potential cost of this facility, building it, is approximately $13 million. We're requesting to look at issuing approximately $5 million in bonds. Do we need that money? No. But it is not financially responsible, and I have a fiduciary responsibility to let you all know, if you all wanted to pay this facility and do it cash, if you wanted to do it, you have the additional funds. Outside of the 14-15 budget funds not allocated, there's an additional $5 million in the capital project funds, $2.5 million in the construction tax fund, which can only be used for municipal buildings, and another $7.3 million in the rainy day fund or the general fund balance. So if town council wanted to not issue bonds and pay it all outright, you absolutely could. But in case council has other projects, other roads that they wanted to get accomplished, whether it be this year or next year, you have the funds to do that and the flexibility to do that, and that is why staff has made the recommendation this way. So with that, that is really all that I have at this point in time. Mayor, council, we could go through other parts of the presentation if you so wish. However, we could probably do that at a work session when we get to that point in the process. At this point in time, there are 3 agenda items that Ms. Garcia is going to read to you all, and our recommendation to council is that we move forward with a project manager to assist us in the planning process, the dirt removal to bring up the 40 acres out of the floodplain, and also potentially using financing for a bond recommendation. I stand for any questions, sir.
Any questions, Charles?
I do. Charles, you mentioned the history of the bid versus the actual cost. Knowing that we've already conducted business before with them, what is the analysis of what their previous bids were versus the actual costs that have come in?
I'm sorry, Ms. Councilmember Walters, who are you referring to on this one, this item?
Who were Swan Architects?
Okay, Swan Architects, we have worked with a number of times in the past. We've already talked to them and negotiated their price. Their price is the lowest and has been the lowest out of all the vendors that did propose.
Okay, and is that cost actual or estimate?
It's actual.
Okay, with the Rummel construction for site grading, actual or estimate?
Actual.
Okay, when we're talking about the facility down the road with the estimate of $14 million, correct?
The $13 million.
$13 million. That is an estimate.
Absolutely. That is primarily an estimate, and as I said, the drawings you see in your packet are just renderings for thought-provoking as to where we're going to go, what we need to add or not. Once the project manager has time to get on board, work with staff, the various boards and commissions, and converse with council at a work session, that number may go down, may go up based upon engineering changes, based upon additions to the buildings that council may want to see, or other changes, but that is purely an estimate.
Projects that we have slated in our CIP budget, how does that compare to moving forward with this project? Is it taking away from anything that we already have set aside in the future?
Councilmember Walters, council, there is absolutely no project that is being heard at this time that has not been assigned by council or planned in previous budgets. This project is not taken away from any of those. And one of the reasons staff put those items on the bottom is if council does identify any projects they wish to fund in the current budget or in the following year, the funds are definitely available to do anything else council wishes to accomplish.
Okay, so when you look at our budget and we go out those 5 years, there's nothing that this project is going to take away from?
No. Councilmember Walters, in addition, there were some changes to the out years of the budget. You all may recall that there was a planning for a new town hall of approximately $15 to $20 million in the 2016-17 fiscal year. I do not see that as a possibility, so a lot of those things have been put off, but there are no road projects that have currently been funded previously that have been taken away for this project. No.
Okay, and in moving forward with the annexations and looking out in that direction, we still have the capabilities to adequately provide services into those areas as well.
Councilmember Walter, Council, thank you for asking that question. Absolutely. In the current recommended budget to Town Council, there is approximately $500,000 set aside if the annexations do go through this year to create that funding mechanism for the staff complement that's going to be needed in that area. And also, our Public Works has identified road projects in the packet that was brought forward to Council last fall. Once the funding stream starts coming in from those annex areas, those road projects will be moving forward with the funding that is generated in those areas.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have some questions.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, a few years back, we got together with SWABAC and a whole committee and putting together some conceptual things of the North End Framework project, including not only bringing the property out of the floodplain, but putting in the pieces of the puzzle that complement that as far as businesses and residential and government facilities. How much of that conceptual plan was even considered in this, or did you guys just put that off the shelf and not consider that? Where are we at with that?
Councilmember Sly, Council, actually, this plan is fairly close to the conceptual plan from SWABAC Partners with the municipal facility buildings and the expansion of the roadway through Main Street. The alignment that we're looking at is fairly close to that original drawing. There are some slight changes in regards to First Street because there is no planning beyond the 40 acres at this point in time. This plan is only simply looking at the 40 acres and where the municipal facilities would be. However, it would create that frontage area around the extension of Main Street for potential retail pad sites, or however council wishes to use those in the future.
And I think one of the things that we were considering too was a plan on getting people off of 79 into this area. And there was a difficulty in what do we do with them once we get to this place. We talked about widening roads to bring them here into a bottleneck of Main Street, or so some type of a way to continue that flow of traffic. Is that considered in this also?
A little bit I may defer to Mr. Costa. However, I can answer it this way, that what this plan does is look at the traffic flow that would need be coming off of Highway 79, where the outlet would come off by the skid canal. That's what we're looking at, the alignment. One of the reasons also looking at bringing on the project manager, Swan Architects, is because they were so much involved in the Territory Square drafting, and they know how to keep the alignments and what we were looking at for our long-term vision plan. So as far as the flow of traffic, you may see that there is a misalignment on First Street, but creating this type of facility without extending the Main Street and looking at only the slow flow of traffic on First Street, it would require Town Council to move forward with a lot of acquisition of properties along First Street to realign the entire roadway from 79 down First Street. As far as expansion through the Main Street area, I can defer to Mr. Costa, but there are no possibilities of expanding the roadway through Main Street to Butte because of what is not because there's no property available there.
I think that one of the things that we were looking at was continuing it out towards the east, towards Plant Road, something similar like that.
Yes, you are correct. I do believe I remember seeing that. However, what this plan currently does is extend First Street only to the 40 acres and extends Main Street beyond the 40 acres to 79. There is no additional planning beyond that 40 acres because there is no recommended funding or funding identified at this point in time to do that.
Does it leave it open for that
It does.
possibility after we get done with that?
Yes, sir, it does.
Any other questions? And going on to, this would be item I. Lisa?
Yes, item D1, discussion approval, disapproval of authorizing the town manager to negotiate and enter into a contract or contracts with Swan Architects, Inc., not to exceed a cumulative total of $270,600 to provide project management service on Territory Square Phase 1 property.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I need a motion.
I make a motion to authorize the town manager to negotiate and enter into contract or contracts with Swan Architect not to exceed a cumulative total of $270,600.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to authorize the town manager to negotiate and enter into contract or contracts with Swan Architects not to exceed a cumulative total of $270,600. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Need a motion? We need, all in favor signify by saying yes.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, boy, I don't know where I'm at now. All opposed, same sign, motion carries. I don't spend $270,000 every day.
Item D2, discussion approval, disapproval to authorize the town manager to negotiate and enter into a contract or contracts with Rummel Constructions, Inc., not to exceed a cumulative total of $1,032,446 to complete proposed site grading construction services on Territory Square Phase 1 property.
Need a motion?
Make a motion to approve to authorize the town manager to negotiate and enter into a contract or contracts with Rummel Construction with an amount not to exceed $1,032,446.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to authorize the town manager to negotiate and enter a contract or contracts with Rummel Construction Incorporated in an amount not to exceed a cumulative total of $1,032,446. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Item D3, discussion approval, disapproval to authorize the town manager to review financial alternatives and secure financing to assist with the funding of construction of a new library, aquatics, and recreation facility in amount not to exceed $5 million plus cost of issuance.
Need a motion?
Before we make a motion, when you're moving forward with the financing alternatives, something that would be appreciative if you would look into is what are the different costs with just a library, with the aquatic center, various components of that sort. I also noticed when we were, and this will be more appropriate at a work session, that there's a lot of office space. For example, like with the Parks and Rec facility, there's 4 offices, a copy room, a break room, and then in the government offices, there's 6 offices, a copy room, and a break room. So just looking at more, what does the community want? Because so far, even though we have the boards, we really haven't had a lot of that other community input. We haven't sent out a survey. There has been no work session on this, and this information was just released to ourselves and general public late Friday afternoon.
Councilmember Walters, Council, if I may, you are absolutely correct. Staff has been looking at this for a number of months, and in 2008, the process started looking at municipal facilities. The facility that was originally planned out here was a 35,000 square foot library by itself that did not include a rec center or anything else. What this is right now is just conceptualizing, and as we go through the public process with the boards and commissions and town council, that may change, may go up, it may go down. So the cost will vary, but we will always, what the plan is whether it's a library or a rec center and aquatic center combination, it is always wise to plan ahead for potential growth, whether it be 4 or 5 offices. And minimal growth is better than no growth. And from my standpoint, I don't want to over-recommend that and have a bunch of vacant space either. I want to make sure the town, once we start construction, that if we need to grow in through 2 or 3 years, that's there. That just because it's there, we don't need to use it either.
No, and believe me, I feel that the town of Florence and the residents need this and they deserve it. However, at the same time, you know, we want to be fiscally responsible. You're looking at all of the different areas of Florence and what is best to bring everybody together. What are some things that we could offer to the residents?
Absolutely, I agree.
Okay.
Need a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize the town manager to review financing alternatives and secure financing to assist with the funding of construction for a new library, aquatics, and recreation facility in the amount not to exceed $5 million plus the cost of issuance.
A second.
Let me ask a question before we go into that in the discussion. We have a motion and a second to do it. I'm curious of the wording of the first sentence. Motion to authorize the manager to review financing and secure financing.
Oh, thank you for pointing that out.
Shouldn't that be to review financing and you know, I'm just, Charles, what I'm saying is, before you go out and find $5 million, we'd like to know about it.
And have the final approval.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, Council, absolutely. What this does, it is authorizes myself and the finance director to work with Mark Reeder, our bond consultant, and also Mike Cafiso, the outside counsel, our bond counsel, to go ahead and try and secure the financing. But the town manager does not have the authority. These documents will be coming back to town council for authority for those bonds when a recommendation comes forward.
Well, shouldn't that be on there in this wording then, alternatives to secure, rather than and secure?
We will note that in the motion, sir.
What's that?
We will note that in the motion.
I believe we have to work with Mr. Mark Reeder on how that gets worded. So we go out to and see if we can secure financing first. Those documents would have to come back to council for authorization, though.
Okay, we have the motion second. Any other discussion? All, need a call for the vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You have your departmental reports there, and department heads are here. Do you have any questions of them? Okay. Hearing no question, we'll do the second call to the public under the same recommendation we did before.
Hi, it's me again.
Hi.
Mayor, Council, I want to thank you for what you did this evening. I really think the library and all the other things that are planned, the aquatics and that, will be a wonderful addition for this town, for the members of this community, for the children of this community. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Hearing none, a closed call to the public, call to the council. Tara?
Again, when it comes to the parks, the library, and the aquatic center, we need to pull together as a town and voice what do we want to see, what is going to bring the residents together. In the conceptual drawing, you know, all of the swimming facilities were outdoors, but possibly exploring the benefits of having part of it being like an indoor heated swimming pool. We have a lot of seniors in the community. There's research out there that shows, you know, exercise in water helps them greatly, as well as we have a lot of youth in the community, and we do live in Arizona. They have access to pools almost year-round. Unfortunately, the statistics for drowning and deaths are significant enough where that might be something to look into, as well as some of those office spaces being put together to bring the different areas together of our town and the different generations together, possibly, you know, pottery classes, glass classes, things of that nature, and just finding out what is it that the residents of the community want. And anybody, please feel free, send in emails to us, come to the meetings, because we will have meetings regarding this issue before we move forward. Some people have voiced that, you know, at this time maybe it would be more fiscally responsible to stay with just the library portion of it. We need to look at the whole and the different options that are together, because on the flip side of it, there is some cost savings if we're going to do it in the long run, to do it all at once and together. So, thank you.
Okay, Bill?
I have nothing.
Sally?
I'd just like to say I'm looking forward to seeing the report from the conference that was attended in Vegas, to see if we have any bites on economic development. So I'm looking forward to seeing that report.
Tommy? Ruben?
No, just let everybody know school is out, so be careful when you're riding out there. We have a lot of children that are out on the streets now, and be safe and stay out of the heat.
Tom?
Yeah, one thing, I have a lady I need to congratulate, because as of today, she just put up with me for 52 years. My wife.
Well, congratulations on 52 years of wedded bliss on your part. I don't know what she'll tell me, but One thing I would like to remind everybody, that as Ruben explained, school is out, kids are all over the streets now and everything, we just need to be extra careful with them. Also to kind of let you know where we're at with the Little League, the concession stand was broken into the other night. Wiped them out. Took all the chips, all the pop, all the Gatorade, all the candy. The police department's working on it. But that money, or what was stolen, is about $1,000 worth of stuff. We've been getting donations have been coming in slow. We appreciate everybody that's donated to us. The money from the concession stand that we make through the year with the Little League goes to buy the all-star uniforms. There are 6 all-star teams going to be representing Florence Little League in tournaments this year. So pretty sure it was kids. But I would, if anybody has any information on it or has any ideas, please contact the Florence Police Department, give them the information. We should be able to make it. There's some parents that will come forward if we don't raise enough money to do the uniforms. I'm sure some of us parents will come forward to do it. So with that, I need a motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adjourn to executive session. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We will be going to executive session. We will be coming back in to close out the meeting.